So I'm probably going to sound very cynical with what I'm about to say. It's about the response by the Democratic Party and the celebrities that are often spokespeople for that party, and even the ones that are not. But you know that they fall on the side of whatever the Democratic Party talks about and promotes. They tend to fall on that side. So I've noticed a lot of celebrities have been talking about the killing of George Floyd, the black man who was murdered by the state police, and that's something, of course, as you know, that happens regularly. So a lot of celebrities, and even a lot of people even that just have cat accounts, and then they don't talk about anything but the cats that are on the account and all that sort of thing, just basically apolitical sites, Instagram and elsewhere, who are talking about this. And I feel like when the parties, and in this case the Democratic Party, gives the okay that this is something important, then everybody starts to fall in line with that. Even people who don't have anything to say about anything politically, they feel like they should say something because there's such a fuss about it. I don't know why there has to be a great fuss to get people to act on it, to get people to say something, but apparently that's the case. And they often take the lead of, people that are in the Democratic Party or celebrities. If celebrities are talking about it, then it must be important, that sort of thing. It's sort of really amazing that people take their lead from celebrities who often have no clue politically what the party they support, the Democratic Party, what they're doing. They have no clue. Yet they just, it's almost like the Democratic Party sends them out an email saying, we want you to, talk about this. And they do it because, often these celebrities are big donors of the Democratic Party, and they get to rub shoulders with the powerful, and the powerful get to rub shoulders with the famous and all that sort of thing. So it's one big happy club, really. And I've talked about this in another video about celebrities, and that was a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, so I won't go into that here. So anyway, so I've noticed all these celebrities that normally don't talk about anything, or rarely, if ever, talk about anything political, anything that's about social justice. All of them are putting something out on their accounts and on their, on their Facebook pages, all the social media pages. Of course, I'm not saying that they don't care about George Floyd, but they're taking this as some sort of specific incidence, some sort of aberration, rather than something that is, a systemic problem in the US. They might be, I'm not saying all of them do, but I'd say that a lot of them probably don't even notice. But also, there's this thing that's been happening for the last 3.5 years, ever since Trump got in, which seems to happen when Republicans get in, that all of a sudden the Republican, no matter who they are, becomes the devil, sort of thing. That everything that they do, which is in many, everything they do, a lot of things they do are awful, yes, of course, but it's like there's the good party, the Democratic Party, and there's the bad party, the Republican Party. And and often these celebrities only talk about issues when it's the Republican Party. If the exact same thing is going on underneath Obama or Clinton, then it's almost like crickets. Or it certainly isn't made out to be the big thing that this George Floyd murder is. And there was a number of murders of black people during the Obama administration, and also overseas with the Obama administration, with their US imperialist wars, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But it always makes me very suspicious, and like I say, I've become very cynical after watching how these like secretaries of state and all of that, and the various politicians, how they tend to selectively pick some issue, and it's usually to score points against their opponents, or it's a sort of a limited hangout. It's something that, it's like they want the public to believe that they really care about this issue. So every so often they will select some incident that's happened, like this George Floyd incident, and really make a lot of fuss about it. They post a lot about it, and it gets the public's attention. It's signal boosted by the propaganda arm of the national security state, like Twitter or Facebook, the other social media platforms that are just propaganda arms, basically. and publishers, really. They editorialize and they censor and all of that. They practice censorship. So Obama, so this is what I'm feeling about this right now, the George Floyd incident, is that sadly the Democratic Party is using this really awful murder of this black man as a way to make themselves look good and to the public, like, here we are, we really care about black people, we're really upset about this, etc., etc. And the celebrities do the same because they follow suit with the Democratic Party and start talking about it. And really, I don't know if I'm not saying that celebrities don't care. Some may, I don't know, but they just take their talking points from the Democratic Party, and so it's like you all use this to say, look how we're behaving towards this issue of racism. Of course, it's much deeper than racism too. It's a lot of things. Look at this issue, and look at how we're dealing with it, and look at how El Duce, look at how 45 is dealing with it, Trump. He's going the other way and calling people that are protesting Antifa, and I've talked about this just recently, how he's framed the issue and designated anybody who is protesting this and who might be and who is angry that they must be from Antifa, and he says he's going to make Antifa a terrorist, designated as a terrorist organization. Well, Antifa isn't an organization, it's an ideology, an anti-fascist ideology. And anybody can, an agent provocateur can call themselves Antifa. A police officer can go in and smash windows. They can smash their own police car windows, which is a video I saw just recently of police smashing the windows of their own police car. They can do all sorts of things to make people believe that the left are violent. It's really they're just a bunch of rat bags, as they call it in Australia, a bunch of rat bags, lefty rat bags, and they try and use this violence to dismiss a movement, to taint a movement. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to do, rather than, and you wouldn't expect him to do anything else, because he's certainly not going to admit to his base that he thinks, I mean, he'll say that it's wrong, what's happened to George Floyd is wrong, but at the same time, he's dismissing and smearing leftist activists who are out and rightfully angry about this terrible murder of this black man by the police, which is all too common. So he's trying to paint leftists that are angry about this as Antifa and therefore terrorists. So that's a very, very dangerous thing he's put out there. I'm getting off the track, but I'm going to get back to it in a second. It's all related. And today I saw on Twitter there was a bunch of white men in Fishtown in Philadelphia who were walking down the street with baseball bats and basically, you know, saying, I've been wanting to do this for 6 months or something, I don't know what. You know, basically they're looking for somebody to attack. It could be black people or it could be people on the left, but I would say that it's either whoever is protesting against the killing of this black person, the killing of George Floyd, they would probably hit them around with a baseball bat. They don't need much of an excuse, these sad white men. They don't need much of an excuse to be violent. And I would say that the tweet from yesterday about Antifa being a terrorist organization is just another dog whistle to the right, to his base. It's like, look, not only do I hate black people and they're a problem, and immigrants, they're all trying to replace we white people, that white replacement theory. Not only is that going on, but the left is trying to overrun us with political correctness and yada yada, you know, all the complaints that you hear from sad white men and incels and all that sort of thing. So that's what I think has brought out these racists, sadly, with their baseball bats in Fishtown. And next thing, it'll be all over the place. They'll be, you know, it'll embolden other white nationalists to get out and with their baseball bats. It's basically, he's sort of instigating in some ways a sort of a civil war between the right and the left. He's fueling that every time he uses his Twitter account. There's some sort of a dog whistle somewhere in there, often. Or if it's not that, he's big-noting himself and saying what a great job he's doing with the coronavirus and all that, even though there's 100,000 people dead because he acted late and didn't believe that and didn't want to act on it, because he basically doesn't care about you. So anyway, that's a side issue of the, which is a very dangerous precedent, sort of putting out, being on the left and being against state violence equals being a terrorist, or that every left person is prone to smashing things up or whatever. And just on a side note, this whole praying for peace thing is such a ridiculous response to this. This isn't about peace or anything. This is a righteous response to an ongoing dreadful situation where basically black people and people of color are second-class citizens in their own country. And wait till they start rounding up Chinese people and Asian people, because the rhetoric about China is being ramped up by the national security state and the corporate-owned media. And here in Australia, it's the same thing. And that leads to people being put in detention camps, and it also leads to people being killed. So wait until that happens. If he gets in a second term, it's bound to happen. And he most likely will get in a second term. So anyway, but going back to the Democratic Party and how I feel they're using this incident with George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, as a way to once again try and score points against Trump. It's a very cynical move by Barack Obama. It's a very cynical move by any of those people in the Democratic Party, most of them I'd say, probably not all of them, but they all sing from the same hymn book. They all have their strategies, and it's all very cynical, a lot of it, including the people we think are progressive, which they aren't, like AOC and people like that, Tulsi Gabbard and people like that. They're quiet on some things, and then suddenly they're talking about something else. And you think, why were you quiet on all those other murders? Why isn't there a huge fuss about every single black person that's been murdered by police, and then the police get off? Why? Why isn't that happening every single time? Is it because this George Floyd thing is convenient right now before an election? Or is it because it's so obvious and there's so much video footage of it that you can't really ignore it? And also because the public has come out in response to it, so you think you should say something about it. But it's all very cynical, and it kind of disgusts me. It makes me sick. And what makes me even sicker is when I look at Barack Obama's Twitter feed, and he's post after post about how we can all make this better with the George Floyd thing, and how we can address racism and stuff. Why am I saying this? Because I want to read something Ajama Baraka has said on his Facebook account. Ajama Baraka is from the Black Alliance for Peace and the Black Agenda Report. And if you really want to understand race issues and imperialism and anti-war, I go on about this site a lot because it's so underrated. I don't know why it doesn't have millions of followers. It should have millions of followers. I don't know why the Black Agenda Report and the Black Alliance for Peace don't have a lot more people joining them on social media. It's really sad, because I think they're excellent. They had Obama's number before he ran for president. They knew he was a neoliberal, probably moderate Republican. They knew he was like that before he even ran. And they tried to tell people about him, but of course I don't know what happened. I wasn't aware of any of these sites at that time. I fell for the hopey changey thing. I thought it was great when he got elected. I even had tears in my eyes. So sad. I feel such a fool, because I didn't know anything. I live in Australia. We just get fed rubbish. We're like mushrooms in the dark here, really. We don't have any fourth estate to speak of here. So I just, you get fed the nonsense that the mainstream media feeds you from the United States about people like that. And you think that, he must be good. He seems really nice. He's black. It'll be great. It'll be great for black people. It'll be great for the world. No. He was a neoliberal who did heaps of horrific things. Now, I'll just read what Ajama Baraka said about Barack Obama. And you can tell by the tone of this that he's really a bit pissed off. And I am too. He said, Ajama Baraka, he said, "You see, you all get mad at me because I got to be the one to remind you that Obama shut down Occupy in between attacking Africa, initiating a regime war in Syria, greenlighting violent groups in Honduras, Egypt, and the Ukraine, expanding the U.S. Africa Command, first president to murder U.S. citizens without due process, including a 16-year-old kid, rearmed Israel when it ran out of ammunition from killing Palestinians in Gaza, reinvaded Iraq and facilitated the Saudi war on Yemen, just to name a few items. And you all let that pig, now he uses the word pig, and I find that offensive because I'm vegan and I just don't know why people keep using species as terms, but I hope that one day that people will stop doing that. But anyway, and you all let that pig get away with talking about violence and Trump's militarism. Question mark, question mark, question mark. So, Obama expanded 2 wars to 7, and that included helping the Saudis with their genocide in Yemen. I mean, he's killing black and brown people all over the world, and nobody even noticed because, look, he looks groovy, he sounds groovy, he's dancing with Ellen, he's hanging out with Michelle, and they're just having a great old time, and he's singing and dancing. I mean, seriously. And he sounds smooth, all of that. He was a great brand, the Obama brand. And look how when he got in, he just abandoned all his, all the people that signed up to help him. The huge mail list he had, just like Bernie Sanders hasn't used that mail list he had to get people to strike and do something to stop this dreadful disaster capitalism that's destroying their lives under the pandemic. Well, Obama didn't use any of those people that he had on his list because once he got in, he didn't care. There's 2 different things there. Sanders had a different reason for abandoning and not utilizing his mail list and doing all of that. And I won't go into that. But Obama just basically, once he got in, that was the end of that. There was no more hopey-changey. And so we were all duped. Well, a lot of us were duped. Hopefully you weren't duped. I certainly was. I didn't get to vote for him, but the whole world should get to vote for the US president because the US is running around meddling in all our internal affairs and invading countries, overturning them, installing other leaders, overthrowing leaders like they did in Australia with Prime Minister Gough Whitlam. The CIA admitted to helping get rid of him. Our only democratic socialist prime minister that we ever had, and it was a neoliberal hell ride ever since. This is how it is now. It's now Obama is basically, because a lot of the left, and I put that in quotes, because I don't believe people are on the left if they're not anti-imperialist, anti-war. You can't be on the left and not be that. I'm sorry. You can argue with me on that till forever and a day, but I'm not going to relent on that one. So Obama, all the left just keep going, oh, wasn't he wonderful? I wish we had him back. I wish we had Obama back. They have no idea what he was up to during that time. Between all the dances with Ellen and photo ops with Michelle and oh, aren't they lovely looking, he was murdering people and helping with a genocide and killing a 16-year-old with a drone. Killing American citizens. That boy was an American citizen and so was his father. Just extrajudicial killings overseas, killing people from drones from the sky, killing children, bombing wedding ceremonies and funeral processions. And it never stops. Doesn't matter what front puppet they have in. It just never ends. It's just seamless. The military-industrial complex, it's seamless, but it's always brown and black people. And here all these people are wringing their hands about George Floyd. What about all the other black people that have been killed by the police? Racist police, that their whole DNA comes from the KKK and the militias. Look up how the police wound up. They're not meant to be protecting the public. They're meant to be protecting oligarchs, but they also stemmed in the United States from the militias and the Second Amendment, which was meant to put down uprising slaves. And then those militias became the KKK, and then the KKK then took off their hoods and became police and sheriffs and prison wardens, etc. So that's one of the reasons why the police are like they are. They don't want police that are into diversity and stuff and all of that, really, as much as they might get training, but it's not good. The police culture is bad. It's really, really racist and bad. And as Jimmy Dore has said, there's no good cops, really. There might be a good cop, but if you're a good cop, you might be a dead cop. He didn't say that, but I'm saying that. And if you are a good cop, you'll probably end up, you won't want to be in that awful, racist, murderous, violence instigating police force. You won't want to be in it. Now, speaking of cynical moves, by the way, Barack Obama has written he's written a blog post. It's sickening. These people are doing this because they want Trump to look bad. They want to look like the good party. This is all about the election. This is what it's about. It's all about the election. Doesn't that make your stomach turn? And he actually posted a speech by George Floyd's brother, who was very upset, of course, and he's using George Floyd's brother to help the Democratic Party at the election. He's pimping that man and the murder of George Floyd to help the Democrats win the election and make Trump look bad. Trump doesn't need much help to look bad, but they've got nothing. They've got Joe Biden, who's a big racist. If you've ever seen him, the speech he did with the crime bill. The crime bill speech, have a look at it, from 1993. And there's so many other things that he's done, including helping a coup d'etat in Ukraine, all the things that Ajama Baraka talked about. He helped with the coup in Ukraine. This is Biden. He helped destroy Latin America with his various meddlings in Latin America. There's a whole bunch of things. He's helped mass incarceration of black people, and this is what they're putting up. And he's in cognitive decline. I think they're pumping him full of drugs so he'll get through, and then they'll prop him up like Weekend at Bernie's during his presidency. But he's not going to get in because he's such a poor candidate. He may, in some ways, in an optic sense, be worse than Hillary Clinton, and that's saying something. So anyway, what a sad state of affairs. What a sad state of affairs, and what a discredit, what a terrible thing to the memory of George Floyd. All this feigning concern for his relatives and him and George Floyd and for other black people. It's disgusting, really. I'm not saying that he doesn't care at all about, but everything that he did in his presidency including not getting Medicare for all, that does nothing for black people. And in fact, he could have gotten Medicare for all, but he chose not to. In fact, he was in bed with the big pharma, the health insurance industry, before they were helping him in his election campaign. As some black people said, we had to lose our house to get a black man into the White House, basically. So now I want to talk about this other disturbing thing I saw today. Now, as I say, this may sound terribly cynical, and it may well be. It may well be cynical. It may be the case that I'm just reading too much into it, but you've probably seen a number of photos now of police getting down on their knee, taking the knee like Colin Kaepernick, a bunch of them from one precinct, and also hugging protesters, police hugging protesters, and all this sort of thing. And today I saw on a live stream outside Minneapolis, I think it was the mayor's residence or something. There was a bunch of people out there protesting, and they had the National Guard with tanks out the front. And at one point, this, I think he was an officer in the National Guard, this black officer, came up to the protesters and started, it was hard to hear what he was saying, but he sort of basically was talking about peace and love and something, right? And then he started, he said, let's have a prayer wall or something. I think that's what he said. And then everybody, they all sort of were holding hands and praying together. It was very bizarre. And I found it interesting that it happened to be a black officer who was speaking to them. And then to be so friendly, when the National Guard was, I think, involved in Kent State shootings where they shot unarmed students at Kent State University. They have authorization to use lethal force in these protests about George Floyd. And I find the optics of this very sort of suspicious. I'm sorry to say, I mean, you know, he may have been an unusual case, But here they are with all their tanks, and then suddenly he's, doing kumbaya moments with the protesters. And I really feel like this is a way of trying to diffuse the anger and quell the stupid masses, they'd see it that way. Quell the masses, and so they'll go home and stop with all these angry protests, and that they might escalate, and there'll be more property damage, which is something the capitalist class don't want to happen. More property damage would be bad for the capitalist class. So there's probably corporations and businesses that have been, who have a hotline to their representatives, their political representatives, and they said, can you please do something about this? Because I don't want to see my business damaged. So I feel like, this is a very probably for the optics, and also a cynical move by the powers that be to make it look like the army is really on side with the protesters, and it's not a sort of an opposing force. They're really on side, and and maybe the masses will go home and everything will return to normal. And then next week there'll be some other black man murdered, and then the corporate mainstream media will ignore it, and most people won't even know it happened. And on and on and on, it'll just go on. And there'll be no changes with the racist policies. There'll be no changes with the imperialist wars, the endless imperialist wars that kill millions of black and brown people overseas. Where is the outrage about that? Where are all these celebrities? Do they ever talk about the imperialist wars? Look at Rosie O'Donnell during George Bush's era. She was complaining about him because he was a Republican. Then when he got out of office, she was quiet for 8 years, never said anything about Barack Obama's wars, he expanded 2 wars to 7, and all the other awful things he did. Nothing. Even now, she actually doesn't even seem to say anything about Donald Trump's wars. All she goes on about is how she hates Donald Trump. This is how superficial and stupid it is. These people, they just don't like him. They want a suave and groovy guy at the helm. They want somebody like a Barack Obama so it makes them feel good. It's all part of the American exceptionalism. They don't want a sort of an overweight white man who's a neo-fascist, overt neo-fascist, in office, who's dog whistling to the right, and who might end up trying to take their profits away because Donald Trump really hates the Democratic Party, and in some ways rightly so, because they've been dragging up the whole Russiagate thing, where there is really very little in it that had any sort of reality in it. It was just a way of vilifying Trump. So he has a reason to hate the mainstream media, and he has a reason to hate the Democratic Party. But it's also cynical on his part, because he wants his base to hate the Democratic Party. So you're looking at them rather than what he's doing, which is nothing during this coronavirus pandemic. So I lost my train of thought there, but he basically, Donald Trump wants everybody to focus on and cause a kind of a civil war type thing between, the left, which is really not the left, if you can call people in the Democratic Party, they're not the left, and the right. He wants to sort of refocus attention away from him and what he's not doing, which is a lot during this coronavirus, and leaving his base basically in the same state that anybody else is. No health care and all of that. No Medicare for all and all of that. Throwing crumbs to people. I find it very weird how, police are taking the knee. I'm sorry, I just don't really buy it. Unless suddenly one precinct is all really, their diversity training, if there's any, has kicked in. But I don't think you can get along in that police culture and be a sort of be anti-racist. I just don't think that's possible. So either they're trying to, they can see the violence escalating, the politicians, and they have decided to take another tact, as well as this really brutal crackdown they're doing. Take another tact and pretend and try and quell it that way by making out like police officers are suddenly all on board with the, we're all, we take the knee, we're anti-racist, we're against this. And also the National Guard, who has authorization to use live ammunition on people. I feel like this is for the optics, and also to quell the masses so they'll go home, and then things can get back to normal, meaning the capitalist class can just continue on with its pillaging and its stealing. The kleptocracy can continue on with stealing It's dreadful watching this. I'd be interested to see if other people have been feeling that way. But the minute I saw these lately, these photos of cops on knees, and then I see this black officer suddenly hugging people in the protests outside the Minneapolis mayor's office, talking about love and everything, and then let's do a prayer. Jeez Louise, you know? It is so effed up. It is so effed up. Don't you think? Wowzer is all I can say to that. It's sort of... And people are so propagandized. They're so propagandized. They probably fall for all of this. They really think, you know, that all these Democratic Party and all of that they're all really the good guys. They think that. They think Obama is a good guy. People want him back. It's so sinister, and it's so evil, really. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to say. I'd be interested to see how this progresses, if it starts to become a thing where you see the guards, the National Guard hugging people, and more cops taking the knee. It'd be interesting to see that. But I really think it's just another manipulative tactic by the state to get people to shut the F up and go home. Anyway, so thanks so much for watching. I hope that you are doing okay. I hope that you were able to hear me okay, because it's very windy out here, but I wanted to be outside to do it. It's nice to see trees in the background. I probably could have found a better view, but I'm trying to keep out of the wind, believe it or not. So anyway, thank you for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notifications bell. Otherwise, you won't receive notifications when I drop a video. And please check out the end credits where there's a suggested video you might like to look at. So please share. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Bye for now.